So let's recap. First, you did homeschooling and remote learning for 8, 10, 5 zillion weeks. For those of you who didn't drink before, I bet you do now. For those of you who already had house accounts at your local liquor store, I bet your alcohol consumption has skyrocketed. And here's hoping you haven't maxed out your credit card on scotch, vodka, and wine. Or if you have, that an IOU from yours truly is actually worth a little bit more than Monopoly money. And finally, for those of you who, like me, still don't drink, miraculously, I bet your consumption of cheese, chocolate, or anything chewable, hopefully besides Clorox tablets, has gone through the roof. As a side note, people, please, please do not eat, drink, inject yourself, or bathe yourself, your family, or your food in Clorox, Lysol, or any other disinfectant. Please, people, please. And now you're probably wondering, what the F am I gonna do about the summer? Well, I don't know. I don't know if your kids' camp is gonna open. If it does, I don't know when. I don't know if it's gonna be joyless and safe, fun, and completely unsafe, maybe even toxic. Nope, no answers for you, no ideas for you. Actually, no, I got two. Grandma and Grandpa. Assuming it's safe for them, for you, and for your mind, which probably now exists independent of your body. My kids are young enough that I've been waging a war on a totally different front. There's no how do I switch from mediocre or aspiring to mediocrity, homeschooling parent, somehow morphing into sucky summer camp counselor. No. For me, our kids are so little that every day is pretty much like the last. And me, I'm pretty much double majoring in play and poop patrol. But since my husband is a critical care doctor with a focus on public health, he's pretty much never here now. And I'm functioning like a single parent to our 1 and 2-year-olds. And since potty training is not going well, for me, the poopy diaper to parent ratio has gone through the roof. Hence my Facebook post the other day when I entered the kids' room after their naps and took a whiff of the air. It smelled like a 12-bathroom stall where every toilet had just been used by guys who each entered with the sports section of the paper under an arm, done their business over a 10-minute period, and then somehow, some way, all 12 of them forgot to flush. As a side note, I'm just going to point out that if they all forgot to flush, I bet 75% also didn't wash their hands. See? There is a silver lining to living in the age of elbow bumps over handshakes. Anyway, going back to my real point. Suffice it to say that potty training isn't going well. I actually think the 1-year-old is getting closer than the 2-year-old, and she hasn't yet graced the potty with her first deposit. So I'm girding for battle. The good news is, you lucky people probably won't be able to smell through the computer what's coming up next for me. But I can hear the kids have just woken up from their naps. As a side note, I don't own any clothespins, so I'm just gonna tape my nostrils shut, mostly shut. I wanna be able to breathe, but not smell. People, please don't try this at home. I know I'm home, but please don't try this at home. Okay, here we go, people. Mei-Ling, thank you for joining me on Doomsday Happy Hour. I'm really pleased to have the chance to interview you. And as you know, part of this program is
geared towards helping people who are kind of looking to get back up on their feet, either through direct advice and or through learning from other people's examples, what they did in their life, how they restarted their career, started their own business, challenges they faced, and how they overcame them. And I thought your story is just so compelling. I mean, you graduated medical school at a time when very few women were doing so. And as I think you mentioned to me before, all the women who were doing so, or almost all the women who were doing so, were going into, I think you said it was like a choice of 3 different practice areas where they were all the lowest paid professions within medicine, general practice, I think pediatrics, and you cut a different path. Because you were cutting a different path and because you were already a mom, you had to do things differently. You had to do them your own way. And I thought that your examples, people could learn so much from. Not just in medicine, by the way.
It has widespread applications. You have to be willing to take your life in your own hands and mold it to how it fits your circumstances. And there are numerous risks associated with that. There's no question about it. And it's daring. It's uncertain.
But just to give everybody who's watching a sense, let people know where you were coming from, what your specialty was, what your circumstances were when you graduated medical school and finished your residency. And it's your story. I want you to tell it.
Okay. Well, I decided to have children in medical school because, in my opinion, there was no good time for a woman physician to have children. So I graduated medical school with 2 children under 2, which was very, very, very unheard of in my generation. I certainly got laughed at, and it's probably ridiculed behind my back. And it was a balancing act like no other. I had to do things like carry a beeper for home as well as a beeper for the hospital. So I was always on call.
Back in the days when there were beepers.
I was fortunately able to take care of all my professional duties. And then I would come home with 2 shopping carts full of 2 different sized diapers, 1 formula, 1 milk, plus everything else. And I looked like I was insane. Here I am coming home with my scrubs, pushing 2. I would actually push 1 shopping cart and pull the other one behind me.
I've done that with a shopping cart and a stroller.
It was a nutty time. I look back and I say, I don't know how I did it, but I was able to. I chose the career that I wanted to because, number one, I loved surgery. There was just no question about it.
Well, you haven't told us what you did.
Yes. So I chose surgery after having gone through let's call it a mini internship in Johns Hopkins in the Department of Surgery when I was 18. I spent a month there. I realized I loved surgery, but the rigors of general surgery were not my cup of tea. I wanted to have something that was smaller, more manageable in terms of the style of surgery that you do, as well as the size of the instruments, as well as having much more control of my schedule. And general surgery doesn't permit that. And nor does,
because you can need heart surgery. Somebody can need heart surgery any time of the day.
Exactly. So there were a number of things that were immediately put to the side because I needed to be able to control my lifestyle as well as my profession while still being able to take care of a family. So I chose ophthalmology because it had very tiny little instruments, which were wonderful for my hand. Not to mention, you got to sit down to do your surgery.
Oh, I did not know that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So ophthalmology was my cup of tea. I got to do surgery. I really loved doing surgery. And at the time that I went to medical school, women in ophthalmology, there were so few because they had families and people, doctors, other partners, they didn't want disruption in their world, their work world. You had to be able to perform up to the standards of any other male physician, despite the fact that you had little ones at home. That wasn't their concern.
What you're saying is that you were you did everything, and that meant at least at that time, there weren't stay-at-home dads, and the general consensus was that the man was going to be the breadwinner, the wife was going to be taking care of the kids at home. So
by and large,
from your male colleague's perspective, that was outsourced, and you were a liability because you had an additional major responsibility that they didn't have, that could crop up at any time.
Absolutely. They were not the least bit interested in what, in terms of your personal circumstances. It shouldn't interfere with the flow of practice, whether it was
so if I understand correctly, then that would have made you a liability to hire.
Exactly. And even today, people, they look at pregnant women and go, ooh.
There have been articles about whether or not you can interview while pregnant and while visibly pregnant and really expect the job to come through.
I actually did. I tried to hide it. It didn't work so well because he really caught on to me. I should say, actually, this was a woman interviewer. I actually had my trench coat on my arm in front of me, in front of my belly, and which wasn't very big. And she said to me, "So what do you do?"
That's funny. I've heard of actors or actresses in I think it was Modern Family, the first season, when the one who plays Claire Dunphy was pregnant with twins, and she ended up carrying a lot of laundry baskets and other things to hide her belly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a lot. There were a lot of crazy times, when your children get sick or they have school plays and things that you need to do to meet their needs. And which is why I chose to go into solo practice. And so at the end of the residency, it was, okay, I really don't have time to go do a fellowship because I really have to get to work, so to speak.
You need to start making money.
Yeah, I needed to support a family and take care of business. And so I did that. But I also knew that partners didn't want you taking off time for childcare. Your babysitter doesn't show up. They've got to go to the pediatrician.
And tell us, because so many people now are struggling with the concept of, should I be an employee for somebody else or should I start my own business? And obviously for you, you're saying being an employee for somebody else just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work with your family's circumstances, and you needed to be the breadwinner. But you also needed to make sure that you were there for your kids, that they had a mother. So for you, it was clear cut. You had to start your own business. What was involved with that? I assume that, you didn't start off with, it's not like this was your second career and you were starting off with a fortune that you'd earned in a prior career or some, cushy, back, some cushion to fall back on. So I imagine you couldn't hire people to support you. So you probably had to play doctor, receptionist, biller, coder, everything.
Yes, I started from exactly zero. I borrowed money from my mother to buy my equipment, which was very expensive. And I took ads out in the newspaper, but it really ended up that I needed to really super network with people in the hospital. And I was fortunate because I was in a multi-specialty building, which helped. So I went and introduced myself to everyone. I was 2 driveways away from the hospital, which was great because then you could go and be close to doing surgery there, also doing consults as they cropped up. So it was rather
compact. So what you're saying is you had your private practice, and if they needed an ophthalmology person to come to drop in for a case that presented, you could just hop over.
Yes, it was very, very convenient. I sort of spec'd it out in terms of what I thought was important. I thought it was important. I thought starting in the city where I actually grew up was going to be helpful. That turned out to be a fallacy. But the fact that—
For referrals, is that why you thought that?
No, just for, maybe people who might know you, who might come. It was very hard to get people to come to you because, number one, you were fresh out of box. And people were a little bit afraid of, okay, you don't really have experience yet. And then I got a lot of pushback for being a woman physician. from some people, not people that I know, but people that I didn't know. They might walk into my office looking for Dr. Yee. I'm Dr. Yee. And they were like, oh, well, I thought you were a man. And I said, not last time I checked. And some people would turn around and walk out. And I was like, that's your prerogative. It's okay. Whatever works for you is fine. But breaking the referral patterns of the ophthalmologists that had been on staff for many, many years. First of all, there were all men except for one woman who was married to one of the men. So that was an automatic shoo-in for her. But as the new kid on the block, it was extremely difficult. And there was one woman physician who, in a different specialty in my multi-specialty building, who actually tried very hard to keep me afloat. And she actually, I can't thank her enough for what she did to try to keep me in the loop, getting, sending me appropriate referrals and things like that. But it was a very, very uncertain time. And I used to be afraid that I wasn't going to make the rent that month. Not to mention what you have to bring home to feed your family. I had to
right, of course.
I used to moonlight in the emergency room. Sometimes I would moonlight in other people's offices. Sometimes I would moonlight for the eye bank, whatever it took.
How long did it take to really get on your feet?
Gee, I really don't have a distinct memory of how long it took to get up and going. I can tell you it was years. Because as I said to you, breaking those referral patterns it was an unbelievably hard task. Mm-hmm. It just, and the fact that I looked much younger than I actually was didn't help. Really, I used to try to dress older so that people would take me more seriously. So, you couldn't win for losing.
I've heard that some politicians, if they look too young, they will dye their hair gray or at least put gray streaks in. And I've heard of other people who have baby faces who will grow facial hair. But first of all, no woman is dyeing her hair gray.
Exactly.
And the facial hair also is clearly for men. So yeah, so what were you as a woman going to do?
Eventually, I just really got to know people. Actually, I was on staff at 5 hospitals, including one in New York. It was insane. So I did
one's being in New Jersey, just for our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, I was on 4 in New Jersey, 1 in New York, taking call, doing things, meeting people, going out there, letting them know that I was alive, well, and ready to work. And that's really what it took. It took a super amount of networking. And eventually, things got better. I really can't say exactly when, but at the end of my career, I used to say, they'd say, well, how long have you been doing this? And I was like, long enough that I really don't have to tell you. It's like my diplomas are up on the wall.
And what do you think, what gave you the confidence to just start your own business and take on, besides being the breadwinner for, a family, take on, as you said, the additional responsibilities of the rent and you'd have to cover that before you could bring anything home.
You never know if you're going to be okay, but because I always believed in hard work and lots of it, mm-hmm. I felt confident that I could make it work because I would try, as I said, every avenue mm-hmm. that was available to me, as I said, working in the emergency room, working in someone else's office, doing those ancillary things to support my practice. Because initially, mm-hmm. as you alluded to, I didn't have a secretary. I had to type my own referral letters. I used an answering service because I couldn't afford to have someone sitting there in an absolutely empty office. NASA has a saying, it's failure is not an option. And that's right. Pretty much the way I looked at it. Failure was not an option. This is something I needed. First of all, it's something that I wanted to do, that I trained to do, that I deserved to do, and that I was just going to make work. And I would just continue to troubleshoot until I could make things work. Now, when we graduated from medical school, we had about 20 minutes of how to start a business. I am not
adequate.
20 minutes from a previous, actually an active practitioner who came in to tell us his 20 minutes of wisdom. So I ended up going to my friend's father's office, speaking to his business manager, and she was telling me, okay, you need to have this, you need to have this, you need to set this up, this is the way we do this. And I probably spent about 2 days there learning actually how to open an office and the things that are necessary for bookkeeping, because we were taught medicine and not anything about business. Right. And so, it's different right now. Everybody wants to go and be an employee. They don't want to take the business risk. It is a lot of uncertainty. And with falling reimbursement, you have to run like a rat on an exercise wheel, a hamster on that exercise wheel to just really keep up the cost. So I just did what I needed to do because I certainly didn't want to fail, but I had to take care of my family and I didn't want to work for someone. I actually had gotten one offer from one male physician to work for him. And it was the most insulting offer I had ever heard of. And I just said, thank you, no, thank you. And and that's pretty much what pushed me to the edge. And I said, so I really know what I have to do. If people are going to offer me
pennies on the dollar, so to speak,
salaries that were so ridiculously low, I said, I can fail by myself. I don't need help.
I love that. I can fail by myself. I don't need help.
So let me go and just do it.
But at the same time, failure is not an option for NASA. Very inspiring. Mei-Ling, thank you so much.